What's up guys, it's Naf here. So over the last few days I've been doing the new Shattered Worlds minigame and just wanted to give my thoughts and opinions. So first off, I was happy they introduced a new combat minigame. They haven't done so in a while and I enjoy content that's created that is rewarding but isn't tied to endgame bossing. Going through the worlds, it is interesting to see some unique models which I personally haven't seen anywhere in the open world, and I would be interested as to whether these may be used for the new Slayer creatures released in the near future, or that they solely designed for these instances. I did also really enjoy the buff and debuff system, whereby you did get to make choices in how you wanted to progress through the next few worlds, creating a lot of dynamic gameplay depending on what choices you did make. Now, in my opinion, they weren't exactly balanced. Some of those buffs did make things extremely easy compared to some of the others, and equally with the debuffs, some were absolutely crippling whilst others were hardly noticeable. But regardless, when trying to make variety, it's hard to have things 100% balanced, so that's not a big issue and I do understand that. The challenges are a cool system too, although I do hope they have some sort of rotation, otherwise the challenges will get a bit repetitive doing the exact same thing every week, especially because the concepts for the challenges aren't exactly that complex, so I'd like to hope they can make something else, at least say every once a month for the 3 sets. Now, there are a variety of ways of getting the currency, which is Anima. It is done through reaching a new highest world for the first time, that's just the next highest difficulty, killing monsters, or completing worlds regularly, and looting the chest once you've either reached a checkpoint, which is 5 worlds, or simply dying. Now, the issue with this system in my mind currently is that the set amount of Anima you get for reaching a new world is extremely high in comparison to all other sources, so that's pretty much put players at a point where they're just pushing themselves as hard as possible to get to new worlds and feeling like doing pretty much anything else is kind of a waste of time. Now, I'm not against people being pushed to challenge themselves, but it is just a case of people hit a point where they can't get any further due to their gear or stats, and because the Anima for doing anything else isn't worth it, they decide they are now done with the minigame. So it really does kill off the feeling of being able to go back and do something else. Now, in terms of myself, I was playing on my Ironman, which was in tier 70 gear with a tier 78 weapon. Now, my best floor was floor 75. At this point I could have progressed further, but it was involving a lot of tedious running back and forward, healing with adrenaline, and just trying to avoid as much damage as possible, which was taking a lot of time and it wasn't enjoyable. So I pretty much just decided to stop there and just trying to run lower floors, and I was getting around 1 million Anima an hour at best. Now, I have been watching some content and reading forum posts by the top end guys who are playing on standard accounts with tier 90 to tier 92 gear and top end supplies such as Supremes, Torment, that sort of thing. Now they're managing to farm around 4 to 5 million Anima an hour. Now that seems okay on paper. When you compare how good their gear is to, say, my account, naturally you would expect them to earn it significantly more because their gear is a lot better. And on that note, I personally wasn't investing much supplies. I was only using, at first I was using monkfish, and then I was actually using the feed me option, and I was getting puro chicken, which healed for 1500, which is practically the same as monkfish. So up at this point, everything seemed pretty good. Currency was being rewarded fairly in the sense that the higher end guys were getting more, and the content was relatively open to everyone in the sense that you could start at world 1, and extremely low players could do that. You could even get given gear and food, and then you could push yourself all the way up to, again, some of the top end guys are doing well over 100, world 120, so there was a lot of content for everyone to do. Now, my issue with the Shattered Worlds minigame is when you actually take a look at the rewards. So they're pretty much broken up into 5 categories. First up, you do have the pet. Now this can be upgraded through tiers from 1 all the way to tier 9, and as you do so, it progressively looks cooler. Now the total accumulative cost is actually 175.7 million Anima. So it's quite a bit, but again, you can upgrade it through tiers, so you can always just buy a lower one and work it up slowly. The second reward type are a new type of item which was actually introduced, which if you look on your character, you'll now notice a new equipment slot for sigils. Now it essentially it's similar to an aura, it provides a buff. Now these sigils do require to be recharged and they cost 45 million each. Now there are 3 different ones, they have a few interesting uses but none are particularly game changing. There are 2 skills, Bladed Dive, a merely dual ability, and Salt the Wound, a ranged ability, and those are 63 million each. Now for new abilities, I don't see it being too much of an issue that they do cost a fair bit, and there are a few miscellaneous things such as the Abyssal Knight Armor Override, which is just a cosmetic set which you put over your gear, That's 27 million Anima for that set. There is a huge Slayer XP lamp, which is no different to the ones you can get off Treasure Hunter. Now, no one will ever buy these. They're priced at 4 million Anima. And lastly, an Abyssal Slayer contract, which gives a task to kill a specific type of monster within the Shattered Worlds minigame, and that'll give you Slayer experience, and those are 500k Anima each. And lastly, what the majority of the reward shop is made up of, the Slayer mask, which you may recognize and already have from Treasure Hunter if you do play a standard account. Now, these masks vary greatly in cost, from 9 mil Anima for a Crawling Hands mask all the way up to 135 million Anima for masks such as Dark Beast mask, Ura, and Abyssal Demon. Now, this in my opinion is where they've gone wrong in terms of upsetting a lot of people, making them feel like the Anima gains they're getting per hour and in general are just too low, and therefore they're just refusing to participate in the minigame. So first of all, I guess it's worth just looking at who wants these masks and who actually needs them. If you play a standard RuneScape account and are a member, you get free Treasure Hunter keys daily, and also for completing quests. These can award Slayer masks, and these have been available on Treasure Hunter for years. Now, I don't know about other people, but my main has all of these masks. I'm maxed, and I practically never use them. I did rarely when I felt like killing things like Abyssal Demons or Dark Beasts, but not enough to actually say I care about having them at all. Now, my max character does have tier 90 and decent augments, and can most likely grind 3 to 4 million Anima an hour, but I'm not really inclined to, for very average seeming sigils, a new ability when I'm happy using my two-hander because it's better anyway, and I have plenty of decent range thresholds, nor do I want a space rat added to my arsenal of already inflated pets. Now, I have actually spent about 15 hours doing this minigame on my Ironman, because as an Ironman, I don't have access to Treasure Hunter, and therefore this is the first time I've had access to Slayer masks. And like most Ironmen, I'm not maxed, and care a lot more about loot than actual Slayer experience per hour when I'm leveling Slayer. So initially, it seemed really cool to try get a few of these masks to be able to force the task and farm loot for what I actually wanted and needed. For example, when it comes to getting parts to build the Slayer helm from the Wyrms, which I know a lot of Ironmen struggle with, you need to specifically be on task to actually get their unique drops, and that's an example of where Ironmen could really use these masks. And this is really what the issue is in my mind. Ironmen and low levels alike are a lot more likely to need these masks rather than high level and well geared max players who have been playing the game for years. But neither have access to tier 90 gear, or even the resources to use high level consumables grinding through this minigame to even get one mask. Now, on my character in full barrows with the Sun Spear and Monkfish getting about 1 mil Anima an hour, it would take 9 hours to get a Broken Fingers mask, 63 hours to get a Dagannoth mask, and 135 hours getting an Abyssal Demon mask. I can't understand who would believe that's actually worth their time and would actually grind out unless they got extreme satisfaction and enjoyment out of actually playing this minigame. Now, I'm not complaining there's a disparity between the max end guys and mid to low tier players. I actually think this minigame is cool in the way it allows players to push themselves to get to the highest worlds possible and therefore receive the most Anima an hour. My issue is the pricing with the Slayer masks alone. I'm okay with the abilities requiring a lot of work as well as the sigils, and quite frankly I don't care about the pet, but the masks make no sense at all. Using the Mask of Broken Fingers as an example for Crawling Hands, this is a Slayer monster that requires level 5 Slayer to kill, and it is a level 11 monster. To even get 9 million Anima, it would require a player to complete from World 1 up to World 65 to receive enough Anima for this mask if they were completing each floor once for the bonus Anima, which requires at least tier 60 gear to get, and that would be with a lot of difficulty and skill on behalf of the player. Now, if you did decide to try grind out on some of the lower worlds, you'd probably be looking at about 250k Anima an hour. This would mean it would take at least 36 hours, not including the bonuses for reaching highest floors, because if you're only a low level, say level 20 for example, you would hardly be getting very high in terms of worlds in general. By the time you actually completed 36 hours of this minigame and therefore could afford your crawling mask, you would most likely be at a high enough combat level that you yourself wouldn't even kill them in the open world or use the mask. This goes the same for mid-level players. I personally wanted the Gargoyle mask as it's great gold per task, but whilst getting 1 mil Anima an hour, I was getting about 150k ranged experience an hour with that, and I'm already 88 ranged. Now what this would mean is, by the time I actually grinded out 72 million Anima for the Gargoyle mask, I would have gained 10.8 million ranged experience, and would be well over 99, as well as 99 hit points. And then I would be at a point where I wouldn't even want to kill gargoyles, as I'd be able to kill something higher level. In my opinion, the prices are pretty much ludicrous and make no sense at all. Giving my 2 cents tinfoil hat theory, I'm guessing that they had other rewards planned, which were going to be the expensive reasons to keep players doing this minigame, but got pulled, and therefore they needed to raise the prices of something else to compensate, because they don't want people to just be collecting the 2 skills and never coming back. Regardless, I'd love to hear their justification as to why these masks are priced to such an unreasonable point. Even the idea of a max player spending 2 hours of their time to earn a mask of crawling hands is laughable, and I don't see an endgame player who is earning 5 millinema an hour spending 27 hours for a mask for something such as Dark Beasts or Abyssal Demons. But that's pretty much my opinion on it. I guess my overall statement is disappointed because it was great to finally see a new combat minigame where you could take your best gear in a safe environment and just kill things and have fun, even try out a few different gear setups and just practice combat in general, whilst actually receiving something worthwhile in the meantime. But regardless, to anyone else who's made it this far, if you have any thoughts about it, definitely let me know in the comments. I'm interested what other people think, especially about the pricing of the masks and the minigame in general, which I personally had fun, but the rewards are an absolute letdown. But thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.